The Illuminaughti situation has unfortunately just got much more serious, and it really highlights the depraved depths that Blair will go to in a bid to maintain control. Allegations of physical interactions and harm, embezzling money and destroying lives, just to name a few. She might truly be gone from YouTube at this point, but we really hope that she's gone for good. So hello everyone, welcome back. I am Jake Baz, and today we've had a nuclear bomb drop on our desks around the Illuminaughti situation. Blair or Illuminaughti is the commentary channel that was once praised and is now hanging around like a bad smell. Blair in the past months has gone through so much that has not only destroyed her reputation, it's just totally obliterated it. Initially being exposed as a plagiarist that copies other people's content for their own, then drivelling in with all the lawsuit stuff that she is a bit of a narcissist, by attempting to destroy the lives financially of her previous employees who are Ozmedia, felixthekitcat and wonderstruck. And we just had an update to the situation of the lawsuit which has been going on for the past year or so now, and it actually shocked me, some of the stuff in this, because it really did get much deeper than we all thought. To the point where this may be the worst and most damning information that has come out on her, which really shows the depths that she goes to when she's out of the public eye. And the funniest thing about this entire downfall is that it was exposed by herself. She caused it all. We're going to go through all this now, but before we do, if you enjoy the vid, please do hit the like button and subscribe if you're not, as it really does help out the channel. It lets YouTube know who to send this to, and I would love to have you back for more terrible content. For a quick recap for this entire situation that's gone on, it initially started well over a year ago now with a lawsuit being handed to Ozmedia, felixthekitcat and wonderstruck, who were three employees of previously the Illuminaughti channel, and Blair. Ozmedia also being her ex-boyfriend, and the intention of all of this was to try, in my opinion, and shame these lot by trying to expose all of the drama, just be petty as possible, but mainly to drain the bank accounts of everyone who is involved in this lawsuit, especially Ozmedia. We've had multiple situations that have come forward from this and loads of exposés on Blair which really do paint her as a terrible person. And it's clear to see with Ozmedia at this point, as he has said in his videos, spending over $10,000 a month on this lawsuit, with the numbers adding up over the course of a year with well under what she's claiming for. It is very evident that she's just trying to financially destroy Ozmedia specifically for the actions that he has done. When in reality, Blair's channel has dropped off the face of the earth. She has now quit YouTube. From what we think, she might be doing stuff in the background, but her channel's not uploading anymore, and it's evident that she's getting no money from it because obviously no one's looking at them anymore. They're dropping out of everything, and I think she's just trying to claim it back in a petty way to get money. It was also exposed during this time that Blair was being sued by a debt collector as representative of the state that she lived in because she hadn't paid her taxes, which led to a lot of people to suggest that she's in a little bit more of money struggles than what we previously expected. And with the amount of money thrown up in this new update, it makes sense, because this new update that has just dropped now really does add a lot to the table, and it becomes one of the most damning episodes yet from this scandal. These documents have been taken from MadCatster, who is a YouTuber who covers lots of lawsuit events around YouTube specifically and social media. I would just like to thank MadCatster personally for contributing to all of this discourse that is going on, and also for providing these screenshots. He does a lot of content that breaks down law very well in a YouTube manner, so if you're interested in any of this stuff, please do go and subscribe to him. So this latest document is dated from August 2024, but it has only recently been put into public life, and this is because of Ozmedia having his back and forth with Illuminaughti at this point. It's something that, because of the amount of money that was being spent to cover this lawsuit, it has been really thought about bringing it into the public and really exposing it, and especially because Ozmedia and Illuminaughti at this point are trying to get to a settlement so that this doesn't go all the way through and cost so much more money for both of them. And I think we all would say that we would probably prefer a settlement here, but some of the stuff in this is genuinely, I've said it, insane. And it makes sense why it's been out of the public light for so long. It's also notable to say that Blair has now had her boyfriend, her current boyfriend at this time, involved into this lawsuit because of some of the stuff that's in here, just mixing up the matters and making it even harder at this point to even understand. She's never been one for not being messy, has she? The lawsuit starts here by talking about the claim between Blair and Oz, who are Mr. and Mrs. in this situation, saying that Blair coerced him into signing promissory notes and deeds of trust secured against Oz's residence, and ultimately that Oz was pressured by Blair into signing various documents reporting to evidence of debts by him to her in other companies and months and years. By Oz then paying the money to Blair, she then sent some of the expenses for a personal relationship with her new boyfriend unrelated to her business, which does get detailed further down this, and it is just fucking hilarious, isn't it, that obviously she's coming for money for Oz and from all of these just as some sort of consolidation, when actually it really does look like that she has been spending money from her business unrelated with her boyfriend and then claiming tax relief on it. Not exactly the best way to go around working with your taxes, but obviously Blair is one of utmost integrity, and as it's now being shown in court, she's acting like she has the elegance of a horse in stilettos. It then highlights some of the stuff from the previous iterations of this lawsuit and what is going on around the Let's Talk video. But one important point here is that Blair had also apparently attempted to obtain civil restraining orders against Oz and others, which have come to light publicly, but notice of which was never served, and it appears no relief was ever granted, which is really important. So essentially what it's saying there is that Blair did ask for a restraining order from Oz after all of this that went on. This went through the courts, but for some reason, it was never granted. And now we can only speculate on why it was never granted, but my presumption would be that Oz Media did not do anything remotely that could constitute towards getting a restraining order against them, so it got rejected. But it was never granted, and Blair chased it. Also, just adding credence to the idea that she is just trying to destroy Oz Media in the courts however she can, and potentially just to silence them, as you can see here, by saying that upon information and belief, both the foreclosure and the initial complaint were intended to silence Oz and others from discovering intertwined personal and professional relationships with her, which was subject to widespread public interest and concern. Which may add, in previous lawsuits, her lawyers have said that this is not a public concern issue and it really shouldn't be spread online. Which is just hilarious for your argument to be, oh no, this 1 million sub YouTuber really doesn't have any public concern. I understand a 1 million sub count in the drop of like a 9 billion people alive in the world is nothing, but it really is a public concern. She's a public figure, so she should be treated as such. And I think if you just look at some of the views of the content that is showing and highlighting the person that Blair is, you can really come to that conclusion that it really is important. And people do really see this as something that should be highlighted and shown. There's also a bit of a slam dunk here with the lawyers saying these statements made publicly by Blair have garnered considerable public attention and interest, as they are in stark contrast to her public Illuminaughti persona and purported values, which were focused on criticism of the exposure of bad corporate actors in a variety of industries. Because yeah, what she's been doing is obviously in stark contrast to her ability to commentate. If you're a commentator, you have to take on as well as interpret criticism, and that is something that she has never been able to do, and it's also why she got into the problems that she's in now in the first place. She dug her bed, she sat in it, she refused to believe that she is wrong, and that's where this has all come from. That is ultimately, to me, the only reason why her channel has disintegrated, but she is obviously in this lawsuit trying to blame Oz Media, felixthekitcat, wonderstruck for the purported damages that she has basically not really gone through. And Oz's lawyers really tried to harness this idea. Blair could get into trouble legally for misuse of company assets, or to his understanding, liable for embezzlement. Blair explained the need for documentation because she would be in legal trouble if her companies couldn't account for where these funds were spent for and on what business purpose. And now Blair is attacking Oz Media for this situation because of a foreclosure on a home that happened that she did end up up buying, which Oz Media was living in. Saying that in 21, despite signing the documents, evidence that were secured by deeds of trust, Oz was never provided with any clear itemization of the alleged debts, but was actually coerced and manipulated into signing these documents, saying that these would end up helping their relationship. Which, bear in mind as well, at this point, apparently she's already seeing this new lad, so that's clearly gone well, hasn't it? You know, just putting out the signing a legal document which helps you get away from financial responsibility would really help our relationship, basically proving that the money's the only thing in it for you. That's really smart, isn't it, Blair? This whole lawsuit, this whole drama, everything that's come out really does show the manipulation tactics that Blair has used in the past and will use in the future to try and obscure and also to manipulate people into doing what she wants to do. But obviously, with everything coming out now and her losing her channel, that's never going to happen in the future, you would hope. And this, to me, really is a hook, line and sinker of trying to do this by saying you have to do this or our relationship is going to be ruined. Saying that in the Let's Talk video from Oz Media, he had the understanding that when he signed the documents, he didn't know what he was doing. And he didn't know that they could foreclose his home. So basically what Blair was doing there was using her ideas and understandings of the legal system to potentially get one over Oz Media, which obviously is really not morally right. And then when you add on top of that she is literally talking about company mismanagement, that's her entire brand and her entire channel, it comes across as quite hilarious, doesn't it? It's almost like she's taking all these Wikipedia copies, because that's what her YouTube channel turned out to be, and she is then applying them into the real life for her own benefit, just ignoring every sort of morality that she has, even though apparently she's meant to be this moral grandstander. And this moral grandstanding is clearly coming to a head, isn't it? And it really is worth hammering in this point, because the main idea around this entire lawsuit, the pettiness of it all, was because the Oz Media was being fined for doing work on this house that he didn't know that was going to get foreclosed. And the amount of money that is within this is really not even shown. It's not itemized throughout the entirety of this lawsuit. It's never actually been shown why this money, this certain amount of money, has been attributed to it. With Oz then hammering in 23, saying that he demands an equitable accounting of the amounts of such claims and indebtedness. Because you're not even explaining how much money is actually from what part, like you're just saying it. She's basically just taken this lump sum amount, which includes loads of random stuff, lumped it together and thrown it out there without even thinking about the financial records. And I feel like that's kind of intentional, so she could just get away with saying it, but that's not going to run through in court. With Oz stating in this document in 24 that he requests such accounting to begin discovery of relevant documents and information for sole possession, because the only way that he's going to find out how much money he has to pay is if he knows what it's being paid on. Because the thought process behind this, as seen in 25, is much different. As Oz believes that many of the alleged debts included in the documents from Blair is evidence in debt that appears that Blair's personal expenses and expenses incurred during their short romantic relationship, and urging the insistence that Oz had understood at the time this was to be shared. With her then using the company funds and then adding the amounts to an undisclosed ledger of debt she claimed that he owed back. This is why really business and personal stuff should be not mixed together, because this is so messy. Obviously, Oz didn't know at the time that this amount of money that was being spent on, I don't know, maybe food, maybe different types of items or housing, this was meant to be for personal. It is personal stuff. But instead what Blair's done is that she has taken it from the company accounts and then she is charging it to the company, essentially her own company, so then she gets tax relief for the money that she spent. And she's trying to get the money back from Oz now, even though it potentially seems that there is a lot of money there that has been spent just from them being in a relationship and having a good time together. And this, in my opinion, is probably why she has refused to say exactly what expenses are on what, because it would highlight that she has not only just taken money out, but she has also done something that is like actually illegal by hiding money in company funds and spending it for personal gain. And then specifically with this part, with Blair urging the insistence that Oz had understood at the time this was to be shared, it just seems like she's just adding that on afterwards, because obviously Oz would have paid the money for that if he could, or if he knew. because it seems to me that Oz is a very nice guy. When you're comparing it to Blair, at least, it's literally chalk and cheese. And I really would presume this is potentially why Blair is going for a settlement at this point with Oz Media, because it's going to be exposed. If it goes much deeper, they're going to find out exactly what she's been doing. And that could mean a lot of fines and a lot of trouble for Blair Illuminaughti. The situation of the money is then explained here by saying that initially Blair provided a $40,000 payment to Oz in or about January that was used to satisfy a loan underwriting for Oz's purchase of his newly constructed home. Later, however, Blair would include $40,000 of payments in an unwritten ledger of debt she claimed Oz owed her and her companies, and she used her undue influence to pressure and coerce Oz into signing loan documents that included the $40,000 payment, along with numerous other amounts which are not itemized or identified. Which really does show the evil nature of what Blair was doing, in that she was really financially controlling Oz Media. Bear in mind, he was working with her at this point. She basically backed him up into a corner by controlling him and then made him sign documents and everything around it so that she could get money back for what she has spent. Hiding it all in these loan agreements, these very heavily financial and legislative documents, which really a normal person such as Oz Media is not really going to understand, and God forbid he did. And this got worse in 29, with them saying, upon information and belief, Blair would later inflate the $40,000 payment to $49,999 without any basis, and include the amounts on an unwritten ledger of debt. So not only is she just charging without what, she's then just adding an extra $9,999 on top, just to, sweeten the deal for her. Or maybe because she was spending a bit too much on her own personal stuff and thought, well, I need a bit of reclaim here. Once again, in my opinion, just to try and, sort the taxes out a bit more. She's into crypto. She did do crypto for a bit, so it does really look like that, doesn't it? That she's just trying to embezzle her funds somewhat. And another important factor here that I really do think is that if this has been itemized, it definitely wouldn't come up directly to $40,000, because that's not how it works. If you're paying for $5.30 a year, $6.45, $5,621 over there, obviously, all this amount does not equal up to a round number, and it doesn't equal up to a round number once again, 999 extra. This really does, to me, scream that before this lawsuit, she was just trying to add as much money as she can, just thought of a round number that'll help, and then just popped it on without actually itemizing anything. What? Imagine you get a £100 bill and there is nothing on it that explains why you have to pay this money. Obviously, you're going to be like, well, what? It just seems really cheeky, and it's really not a way to run a business, and it is shady business practices, which Illuminaughti really should have a good grasp and idea of how that works, considering that was her entire bit on YouTube for about 4 years. Other amounts of alleged debt appear to be for the rental expense of a warehouse where Blair conducted the business for a candle company, production of Illuminaughti videos, and a crypto farm which was at one point a joint venture, with Oz being involved at first but Blair buying them out. Which is just crazy to me. Why would you involve a rental property which has been bought specifically, rented specifically for you doing this candle stuff, which Oz Media is going to get absolutely none of? And also production of Illuminaughti videos, he is literally your editor. You pay him to do your job. But it obviously gets even worse from that. Upon information and belief, rather than splitting the warehouse rental expenses, it appears that Blair charged a total amount of rent for warehouse space to Oz in the ledger of unwritten debts. Notwithstanding Blair's latest sole ownership of the crypto farm, Oz continued to provide work for it without compensation, which is just insane to me. It really is. She's charging absolutely everything, it looks like, to Oz Media as a big FU. She was involved in all of these business practices with Oz, so why would she be charging the entire amount to Oz unless she's just trying to embezzle and trying to save as much money as she can, especially because of how it's going right now and how her finances must be looking. She will have made a lot of money, she will have, over her time on YouTube, but she also will have not made enough money to be living the rest of her life doing what she was doing, spending the stupid amounts of money, and also Oz, I feel really sorry for him. Having to deal with this sort of stuff must have been absolutely horrible. Also in the ledger of debt in 31 was including the $5,000 bonus to Oz in August 22 and other funds withdrawn by Blair from 9 Point Holdings Inc., which is her actual YouTube channel account, that were used by Blair and Oz to get a mortgage from Oz's residence current whilst Blair was residing therein. Which is crazy, innit? You give someone a $5,000 bonus and then you're like, oh no, actually, that's debt. You owe me $5,000 now. Like, what? Well, it's like winning the lottery and then getting charged back the entire amount. And then sneakily just adding on top of that, you know, some of the personal stuff that she spent money on in her business. And then she's just like, right, you owe that. It's just so cheeky. It's so crazy that she would even think that this is going to work, to be honest. I don't know why she did. And it just shows how petty and, quite frankly, pathetic all of this is with her in the way that she is just trying to claw back everything that she can. I can understand she's going through a tough time financially, but it's all her own doing. But she will never accept the idea that it is her own doing because she thinks that she's in the right in these entire situations and nothing is wrong in any aspect. It's how she handled the entire controversies of plagiarism and things like that in the initial step, and really it just shows how condescending and also slightly narcissistic she can be, because it's all about her and none of you have anything to do with it. This then goes into some of the deeper stuff of how this has harmed Oz and also some physical altercations, which once again shows the coercive control that Blair really did show her, saying that at the initial point that Oz Media was actively engaged as a YouTube content creator and was earning a certain amount monthly when Blair started with the romantic relationship with him. He would later become entangled in Blair's business practices and personal life to the detriment of his own financial well-being, all as a consequence of Blair's urgent manipulation, coercion, deceit, and overbearing narcissism, which only foreshadowed her toxic personal and professional identity that would later become so evident. We then obviously get to some more cheekiness from Blair. When Blair made a further trip to visit Oz in March 2020, and Oz made a further trip thereafter, during which Blair began to pressure Oz to move in to the area where she lived, and for the contract for a construction of a new home of the couple to move in together. Blair implored Oz to have a home built and put the mortgage and title thereto in his name only as at the time. Oz had very good credit and Blair's was poor, which to me, there again, it's very obvious. What she's doing is coercing him into doing something that he necessarily might not have wanted to do. Oz definitely shouldn't blame himself at the time, but it is evident to me that he is being brought into and in this toxic relationship where Blair is basically controlling him all the way through. Saying that she wants him to be put solely into the title for this house is intentionally because he's got good credit, so he's going to get accepted for it, and then unintentionally you end up with a shitload of debt that you can't sort out yourself. And the reason why is because she had poor credit, because she had been spending a lot and not paying it back. Something which this financial control obviously doesn't seem to be a strong point considering all that we've already gone through. With Oz then actually agreeing and contracting for the construction of this new home, and they continued to see each other, and then with Blair's insistence, moving in and residing in the rental property with Blair and her roommates while the house that was being contracted for Oz was being done. Which seems, once again, like another manipulation tactic. Oh, it's getting done. Oh, you should move in with me and my housemates. We could have a really good thing going on. Bringing that forward and then leading to a relationship which is totally entrapped. Obviously, moving into someone's house as like a relationship, if you're down a certain path, totally fine, totally normal. But when you look at everything, the way that she has managed this and controlled it, it does seem all intentional, all parts of a manipulation play from her part. And then this is highlighted further here. Upon information and belief, Blair would use funds from her LLC and corporation to ensure Oz into a spiral of dependence for which he would later insist that Blair coerced signatures upon instruments of debt. These signatures were in part designed to control and manipulate Oz into forcing him to bow down to Blair's will, but also to paper over the misappropriation of assets in her LLC and corporation by Blair for personal use, which would later be understood by Oz to be cover for Blair's possible embezzlement of funds from her established business entities. Which, yeah, to me really does seem like what she has done is she spent a lot of money. She spent a lot of money that she probably didn't have or really shouldn't be having in that sense. She needs to pay it back and can't, maybe struggling. So she's embezzled this money into a debt which has then been signed by Oz, where basically she's now getting him to pay his debts. You now owe my debts. Handshake. It's so cheeky. It's crazy. And it's really understandable that Oz maybe gets put down into this level. It's not his fault. But it's just crazy when you look at it. The amount of money that has been taken from Oz in this situation is mental. And it's all off the terrible business practices that has been used by Blair by using personal money for this sort of feud. And then by hiding it in this debt, it's basically saying, oh, well, if I get checked out by the IRS, everything will be fine. Shortly after moving in the home for them two, it turned out that she decided scheming for a new home that was designed in about May of 2021. She insisted that Oz to be involved financially, I presume because of the amount of good debt that he has. Blair then entered into the design and construction agreements, paying $75,000 for the same, and added 50% of the costs of such a project on an unwritten ledger of debt she attributed to Oz. With him then saying that this is another explanation of why this signature was needed, because it hides when it becomes personal use and purely personal use. It hides everything around it. Mental from her to even do this and think that she's going to get away with it. Blair would then unilaterally decide to cancel the building project, but she would still continue to give Oz the 50% or $37,500 in addition to the $40,000 she paid him for the computer work as debt. Which is crazy. You cancel it yourself without his knowledge and then, oh, well, you still owe me all this money. Well, it's for a home for both of us maybe, but why have you done this? And when she moved out, she took all the documents regarding the building project with her, because then you can't see them because we've hidden them. This then began with Oz's reliance on Blair for financial assistance, which Blair would use to exploit and pressure Oz into numerous other transactions and purchases, including a luxury vehicle that his income couldn't support. Blair also demanded that Oz could co-sign various loan obligations, including the car for Blair, purchased and then leased before repossessing the same, and a $40,000 loan which was for home renovations, which Blair had promised to pay half but never did. So he's being financially ruined by her. She is literally just taking all of this money away from him, and then just letting him live with it, hitting his credit score, damaging himself, and then also putting him in a load of debt that he didn't want or need. This not only puts a lot of pressure on him when Blair then comes in and she becomes basically literally the only reason that you are making money by taking it all and you working for it all the time. It just ends in a cyclical cycle where she has even more control over him and she could do what she wants with him. It's so disgusting. It's really evil, to be honest. And I can't believe that she even got away with it, or is trying to get away with it in the form of trying to do a lawsuit on Oz Media. How can you do all this? How can you cause all this damage financially to someone and then try and get a little bit more out of them to try and ruin their life? It's financial coercion. It's very morally wrong. It's ridiculous that she could even try and get away with this, and it baffles my mind the lengths that she would go to basically get her own way. Especially when she was earning so much money herself on this platform. She had the ability herself to go out and do what she wanted to do, but instead she decided to try and control her boyfriend. Because ultimately I can imagine that the only thing that she really wanted from him is his money. And that's all. But with her narcissistic nature, maybe she just wanted control. Oz allowed his work for Blair and her companies, once he had become employed to her, to dominate his professional and personal life, all but abandon his YouTube channel and independent source of income work from Blair's benefit. During this time with Pyramid Entertainment, Oz was only earning approximately $2,800 a month, despite having financial obligations greatly exceeding that amount, including his mortgage and obligations and other purchases Blair coerced him into. Which is crazy, as if she was only paying him about $2,800 a month. This might sound like a lot to some people, especially people who are working normal jobs, but considering the whole context of everything, it is nothing. Everyone lives within their means, and especially with a YouTuber who was earning a lot more than that. I can assert you at least double the amount of that, maybe even triple. To go from that to then $2,800 a month just from Blair as well, it pushes you into a corner. And then when she owns so much financially over him anyway, it only gets worse from there. And it must have been a cyclical spiral that ruined him. He's got so many $1,000s of debt, and he's only getting paid a tiny fraction of that and going into debt himself because Blair is controlling him and making everything around her. Blair was also aware of Oz's financial position and continually sought to exploit it for her own benefit and means to control over Oz. Because obviously she knew this because she had created this herself. Like, this is, in my opinion, a very calculated move for her part to control, manipulate, and own someone, essentially. You are everything. It's just honestly so disgusting. After being entangled with Blair, Oz's personal work decreased from posting 2 to 3 videos a week to approximately 1 video per month in 2021 and only 6 videos all of 2022. Oz's independent work became overshadowed by his work for Blair's various projects and other demands at this time. Blair initially moved out of Oz's residence in January 2022 but continued to store her personal belongings, including furniture, at his home, which they were then still dating, but it was under the presumption of Oz was getting exclusive dating, and that wasn't the case because she was with her new boyfriend that hadn't been mentioned to Oz, and Oz didn't know about until he found out by going on her computer. Despite this, Oz's finances continued to become fraught, and Blair would continue to exert her dominance and control over him and his financial existence, making him sign personal loan agreements with her personally and with 9 Point Holdings Inc., her YouTube channel. It's totally just a control play from her, and it worked perfectly well, clearly, because it ruined him. There's bad actors, and then there's people like this, and they are just so disgusting. And the idea that throughout all of this, she was doing videos which were personally made every single week, talking about the problems and dramas of fallouts with businesses and shady business dealings and practices. It's so hilariously ironic, innit? It's such a surprise that she didn't see any of the irony in what she was doing at all. This then developed into Oz becoming behind in his mortgage payments, and he did ask Blair for financial help, which he did receive, including a $5,000 bonus, which was then added to the debt, as you saw. But not only that, during the employment at Pyramid Entertainment, payroll automatic deposits by the company were frequently delayed by days or weeks, while Blair was, upon information and belief, using company assets for her personal use, including purchasing expensive jewellery, luxury handbags, and a new BMW Z4. Which is just fucking insane, innit? So he's being refused payments at the designed date and the actual date, whilst he's struggling with all of these mortgage payments, all these debt payments, which have all come from Blair. Meanwhile, she's taking the money and spending it on handbags and new cars, which are not for business use, for pure personal. Like, could you imagine, like, seeing your boss, like, walk out into his new McLaren whilst you are there not getting your money because they've not paid it, because he's not paid it? Just the idea that she's doing that and literally just scoffing at him and laughing in his face whilst this is all happening and he's struggling entirely because of her is just crazy, and I can't wrap my head around how bad that must have felt. And it makes a lot of sense as to why Oz has taken so long to come forward with all of this, because it's just way too much, and it's mental, all of it. It really does shed further the character of Blair, how bad she actually is, and what she will do to win at all costs. And then, in my opinion, it gets a lot darker. Oz quit working for Pyramid Entertainment entity on January 11th, 2023. Within days of his resignation from Pyramid, Blair began attempting to woo Oz back into a web of toxic relationships, inviting him to clubs with a new boyfriend, John Doe, and other things that I can't say. And also, you can imagine what type of club that is. Which is just insane. Like, she's broken up with him. They've now they've separated. He's not involved anymore. And she's trying to bring him back by clawing him into these uncomfortable situations with her new boyfriend. And then it took a big turn for the worse, because essentially because she had been rejected, what Blair and her boyfriend did at the time is they came over to Oz's house, they paid him a visit, and you can kind of infer what went on there. This part has been privated due to the nature and sensitivity of the subject, but you can very much imagine the type of things that physical would happen from this. And it really gets into a blind criminal aspect for everything that went on here. And I can understand that Oz will not want to pursue criminal charges between this, especially after how horrible everything has been. He didn't want the lawsuit in the first place. He just wanted to move on and get on with his life. But Illuminaughti, for some reason, has made this impossible. But not only that, it has brought to and highlighted now the physical nature that she will even get to try and get her own way over a situation. Because at this point, Oz has broken up with her, he's quit his job, and he is going on his own. So that leads a narcissistic person, a controlling person who has lost control, to have to act out in a situation by visiting him and doing something physical is very harmful. In my opinion for this, it should be seen as going further to the criminal aspects, but obviously I think it's very right if he decides not to do it, considering how much pain he's already been through. But for this to even be alleged in a document, which is a civil lawsuit, a defense of a civil lawsuit, is insane. And it further only shows how controlling, how manipulative, and how horrible Illuminaughti can be when she's backed up into a corner and she's losing absolutely everything. She goes and does something like this. And all because Oz rejected, finally, after all of this, her advances. Following this altercation, attempting to dissuade Blair, Oz gave himself chemical burns and sent Blair photos suggesting he had stress or an allergy rash. Which, to get to that point where you actually SH yourself and then send it as form of this isn't actually SH, this is me having allergies or just being in a bit of a situation. For you to even go down to them lengths, I am so sorry for Oz Media. I really hope that he has got better throughout all of this in some forms, however you can, whilst this is going on. But obviously, the attempt of what Blair is doing is to destroy his life, and clearly, she's getting the physical effects from it. The conduct of Blair and her boyfriend complained of herein was outrageous, unreasonable, and intolerable in a civilized society, and a normal person in the community would find such conduct offensive, annoying to be clear violation of Oz's rights. The conduct by Blair and her boyfriend was done with them knowingly and intentionally to deprive, and with reckless disregard for, the rights of Oz, such that it was substantially certain the cause of Oz's severe emotional distress. Which obviously is right. That is really going to cause some problems and some troubles mentally, physically, and just emotionally deprive a person. As a direct and proximate result of Blair and her boyfriend's unlawful and torturous conduct described herein, Oz has incurred injuries, damages, and loss of amounts to be proven at time of trial. Which hopefully, once again, as there is a settlement currently going on, we can hope that this actually gets settled out of court and it doesn't take much longer for all of this process to go, as Oz, as I've said, is spending over $10,000 per month on this situation, and it's not going to stop. When you've been tortured and attacked in this sort of manner so long, it just really must disintegrate a person and their mentality, and it is a real testament to Oz Media that he has managed to get through this and actually managed to start uploading again on his channel and actually managing to help himself somewhat. But this situation is disgusting, with the lawyers then asking for equitable accounting so everything can be looked at, including itemization of it, as well as an award for damages and proof without Blair and John Doe for the unlawful, outrageous conduct, invasion of privacy, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. And like I said, I hope this doesn't go to trial, but if it does go to trial, I don't see any way that this is going to get unproven, because what we've seen from Blair so far is obfuscation, is just somewhat lies, you'd say. Blair has clearly taken it that step further, and it's something that has been hidden from the public eye for so long, but it's something that really does highlight the depths that she will go to and how disgusting in nature this is as a person, in my opinion. Although there are two sides to every story, actually going up and showing at someone's house and then having a physical altercation with them, that really isn't needed, wanted, warranted, or actually right in any way, shape, or form. And it's evident to see from the highlights within all of this that there is a considerable amount of him being controlled, that is Oz Media, and coerced financially against himself, all with the intention of Blair looking after herself, getting better, and then also just really making more money from it. What I expect and hope from this is that there is a settlement which entertains Ozzy's interests and stops him from being financially destroyed even more by her. It really does highlight this new information that she was really trying to destroy, manipulate, and coerce him into doing things that he didn't want to do so that she could basically control his life. And there doesn't seem to be any other reason apart from either financial, or she was just trying to get a peg and just trying to have a little bit of a stance in the world. And I find that so disgusting. The longer we go on with this, the longer it's going to get worse and more contorted. And we really need to see this stop, especially after what we've just seen. But what do you lot think? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the vid, please do hit the like button and subscribe if you're not, so you can be back for more, as well as checking out MadCatster. I've been Jake Baz, and I'll see you all later. Take care.